Hey guys, welcome to Home Sweet Homeschool. If you're new here, my name is Ashley and I'm a homeschooling mom to one. And in today's video, we're going to do a quick look inside the North American Forest Animals Unit Study from Gather Round Homeschool. Now, if you're new to Gather Round and you know nothing about it, you can definitely go check out their website, gatherroundhomeschool.com. You can find them on Facebook and Instagram, and you can check out a ton of my videos because we have been using this curriculum for many years now at this point, and I have a ton of videos showing the insides of a lot of their units if it's something you're interested in. Now, if you've never heard of Gather Round, it is a unit study based approach to your homeschool, meaning all of your subjects are included within the unit except for math. And they even have came out with a math program now. So they have everything you need to homeschool your youngest all the way through high school. So I have a 10th grader, so I will be showing you the high school student notebook, but you can definitely get the notebooks for each level that you would need for your children. So if you'll notice in this one, if you've watched my other videos, I usually have these bound, but I'm doing something a little different this time. So I haven't put this in any type of binding device yet. Normally I laminate the front cover and then I use my Pro Click and put it on these, but this one's pretty thick. So I'm not sure if this is actually going to work and if I'm going to need to put it in some other type of binder or folder system. I'm not sure yet. We're not using this until later, so I don't know. But that's what I usually do. You're also not going to see the full teacher's guide because I decided that this time I am just going to read it off of my laptop. We're at the point where my son is in the 10th grade and we will not be repeating these units. Now, if you're familiar with Gather Round, the point of them is you do it once with your child and then you circle back to them a few years later. But when you have a child that's already in the 10th grade, we're not going to circle back to these units. There are some that we've came back to, like government and things like that. But these newer units, we will not be coming back to. So I didn't want to print it and waste the paper. So I'm just going to show you a couple of lessons that I did print, but I will be reading it from my laptop, sharing it to my TV so my son can see the teacher's guide as well. Now, if you're wondering, how did I get this? If you've never used Gather Round, you can purchase print, meaning they print it for you on beautiful paper. It's beautifully done, and they will mail it to you, or you can get the digital version and you can print it at home. Really, whatever works out for you. So they do have the teacher's guide. They also have a seat work journal. I'm going to link a video below all about how to use seat work because sometimes people are a little confused about how to do that. So I'll share that in the description. So if you want to check that out. I did not purchase the seat work journal yet because I'm not sure if I want to use it yet. So I really need to go through and look at all the language arts that's within this unit to decide if I feel like he needs more or if we're okay. So if I end up getting it, I will show you that later, but right now we don't have that. Now, this is the teacher's guide. It does come with a nice pretty cover, but I don't have that printed because like I said, I'm going to be using it on my laptop. One thing I want to mention though, before we get into it is if you're not a part of the Gather Round Homeschool app, it is free and it is wonderful. When you go on the app, not only can you just chat about Gather Round and all of the homeschooling things you want to ask about Gather Round, they also have a ton of resources. So they actually have resource links by lesson for every single unit. So if you're someone who doesn't have the time to go and find good videos or go and find good websites, or you just don't want to fool with that app is where to go. Also, if you do love finding resources like that and you come across a great video or something to share, please share it within the app so that they can add it to the resources. The other thing you're going to find on there are these lesson planner pages. I like to use these to write down anything I don't want to forget about each lesson. If there's a video I want us to make sure we watch, whatever it may be, that's what I use these for. You'll also find the scope and sequence. So if you want to know exactly what each level is learning by lesson for each subject, the scope and sequence is wonderful. I think this one was 31 pages, so I did not print it out, but it is something that you could reference if you needed it. There's also a book list that is amazing of tons of suggestions to go with the unit. There's a certificate of completion. You've got to check out the app. So first, let's just get into this. Of course, I'm not going to show you the whole thing because that would be a copyright issue, but I do want to show you a little bit of what the inside looks like in case you've never seen it. So this is North American forest animals. There is 20 lessons, just like all of their units. This is a full unit, so the student notebook is going to contain all of your subjects. So I want to show you 3 lessons because they're really set up the same. And once you've seen one, you've seen them all. One thing you're going to notice if you've used a couple of their units in the past, they started doing some color coding. So in case you have younger kids and the content might not be appropriate for them, you know, maybe over their head, they were color coded. This unit is not color coded because the content is appropriate for all ages. So, of course, this is focusing on an animal, a lesson. If you've done North American birds, this is very, very similar to that. So you have lesson 1. This is all about caribou. You're going to see the bold-faced words, which will be the vocabulary. And I usually print these front and back, but I decided not to since I'm not going to be actually printing a teacher's guide. So you do talk about habitat, food, and predators, their scientific name. There's always some did you know stuff, which we love to read those. I do appreciate the real pictures of the animals. You have a lot about their appearance, so antlers, fur, size, muzzles, and feet. There is an extension activity, so this does say head on over to the resources page in the app to watch a video of a caribou in the wild and hear its call or the clicking sound it makes when it walks. And you can also compare that with the sound that an elk makes. So having that app right beside you or pulled up already is great. You're going to cover habitat and diet, their life cycle. Here's another big did you know. There are a bunch of interesting facts about caribou. You have your family devotion. I love these. They go so well with each lesson. So you do your family devotional, and then there's a hands-on activity at the end of the lesson. So this says caribou have nostrils that spiral like a seashell, and those aren't the only spiral patterns in nature. You can find them in plants and even galaxies. So you go on a spiral hunt and see what you can find. Then you're going to find your vocabulary. One thing I want to point out, because I noticed it with this one, I haven't done a fairly new unit from them in a while because we've been doing some of the older ones. And what I noticed about this one is normally the answer key to the student notebooks is right after the lesson in the teacher's guide. And that is not the case. The answer key is actually in the back of the student notebook. So when I printed my son's, I just printed that for myself and put it into my folder so I could check his work. So if you are getting them in print and you want to pull out those answer keys, that's where you're going to find them. So you got vocabulary. Now we have lesson 15. Let's go to the middle, see what's in the middle. This one is about beavers. So it is set up just like the other one. I like these binoculars. You're covering same things like appearance. So you're going to talk about their head, their fur, their tail, and their feet. Another did you know fact, all about their habitat. Their life cycle. My goodness gracious, look at that baby. How adorable is that? A lot of interesting facts. Your devotion, and another hands-on activity. So this talks about beaver lodges are pretty incredible things. Talks about how they build them. And you can try to make your own lodge using clay, dough, and mud from outside or something else. And then there is an activity for older students. They can grab some wool or fibers or a felting kit and try your hand at felting to see how it's done. And then I went all the way to lesson 20. This is about armadillos. And it talks about the 9-banded armadillo. Covering the same things, head, armor, paws, and fur for the appearance. Y'all, I'm just going to admit to you right now, I've never seen a live armadillo. We live in the South. I see them on the side of the road dead all the time. Not once have I seen a live one. So, just a fun fact about me. Habitat and diet. And if I saw one standing up like that, oh, I'd run. Life cycle, interesting facts, family devotion, and your hands-on activity, which says we don't have hooked tongues like armadillos, but because our tongues are wet, dry things can stick to them. Try eating like an armadillo. Find something dry like Cheerios or small cracker pieces and try to pick them up one by one with your tongue. So there's a neat hands-on activity at the end of every lesson. So as you can see, all the lessons are set up the same. Now let's look at the student notebook. Now, if you are new to Gather Round, there is a level for your child. This is just the high school level. We've chosen to go the unit study route for high school, and we love it. May not be for you, but it is for us. If you have younger kids or you don't think your high schooler is ready for this one, definitely browse through their website, look at their sample pages for each of their levels, and decide what you think would be best for your child. So this is the high school one. And this welcome page does talk about how there's no color coding in the lessons. It talks about in the student notebook, the notebooking pages are simple and open-ended. They give you plenty of room to sketch and label animals and take notes about what's most interesting to you. There's daily geography page to learn more about the types of North American forest, animal habitats, mountain ranges, major bodies of water, and so much more. And then the writing project, because everybody worries about language arts. The writing project for this unit is going virtual, which I love. He is going to learn, your child if they use it, how to use Google Slides. Now, if you're old school like me, we learned all the Microsoft stuff, PowerPoint and all that good stuff. And so it's pretty easy for me to switch over to Google Slides, but I'm glad he is learning Google Slides. They're going to put together a slideshow presentation on an animal of their choice. So they're going to learn how to use Google Slides, how to organize your information, and how to put together an informative presentation that you would share with your family. They do have a read aloud suggestion here. Don't forget about the online resources, and this is the seat work journal that I was talking about. All right, table of contents here. So by lesson, you can see everything that your child's going to be doing. So it does have your color codes for the subject focus, all the subjects that are covered, and then exactly what you're covering in each lesson. For high school, I just tend to take each page that he does. We can put a time on it if we want to keep up with how much time he spends on it. And then I just kind of file that into the appropriate category, whether it be world history, U.S. history, geography, whatever type of science field that it falls under. That's kind of how I do these units. So this is the table of contents. There's also an appendix just full of information, and we'll talk about it. Here's your recitation passage if you do that. And I'll just show you a couple because the notebooking pages pretty much look the same. So this is for lesson 1. So they can sketch or take notes, whatever your kid wants to do, that's up to them. And you'll see this time thing. If they want to time how long they're taking on it, they can certainly do that. For science, they're covering deciduous and evergreen trees. And it does say, you can read right here, and then you check out the resources in the app also, and then you can dig deeper. So if you want to push your high schoolers a little harder, they can research 2 additional trees that grow and identify whether they're deciduous or evergreen. So of course this will be filed under botany because that's what that goes in. So here's the language arts plus the computer skills. It does say before you begin, you're going to be creating a virtual presentation. We're going to use Google Slides. But you do need a Google Gmail account to access that tool. So if you do not have that and you don't want a Google email, you can always use PowerPoint, okay? Or Keynote, whatever you have. So this is going to walk them through how to use it. And then they have a geography lesson for lesson 1 with bonus. And then they're going to talk about the Inuit people for history, okay? So that's all of that. Let me see if I can go to lesson 15, which is what we covered in the teacher's guide. So I can show you what that looks like. So here we are with the beavers here. Got the same thing, appearance, diet, habitat, interesting facts, life cycle. Then you've got parachute drops. This is art and science and an extension activity. So there's a page in the appendix so you can record the results of your experiment. And what I like to do when there's things like this, if I'm binding it at home for myself, I go ahead and put that page where it needs to be. So we're not having to go pull it out of the appendix later as we're doing the unit. By lesson 15, you're designing your slides part 4. So the great thing about Gather Round is it's going to walk them through every process of their unit project. So you don't have to worry about not knowing what to do. As you go through the lessons, you're progressing and learning how to do that unit project. So by 15, you're on part 4. It says your slideshow is really coming together. Today, you're going to add the final slides, the life cycle, and any others that you hadn't had a chance to make yet. So this talks about, how to use that. Then you have Hudson's Bay Company. So this is your geography and history and a place to dig deeper. The Bible here is the power of words. I love when there's a Bible lesson. I think they're great. They go along great with the units. So you do have the power of words here. And so this is about how our words have the power to build others up. And that kind of goes with beavers building their homes. And I just love those connections like that. And that's all of that one. So let's look at 20, and then we'll look at the appendix here and what is included in that. All right, so here's 20. So you'll notice the notebooking page looks very familiar, and that's great. Kids like familiarity of things. Then you have bonding experiences. So this is social studies and history. So this talks about some tragedies that have occurred here and how people came together when things like that happen. Then you have a whole science lesson about pill bugs. And then this is for their presentation. This is wonderful that they have included a rubric so that you can grade, especially if you're having to keep grades for high school and you're going to have to fill out that transcript. I love that this is done for you. Now, you can find a ton of free rubrics on Teachers Pay Teachers and online to help you grade these pages so you can give your kids a grade. But I absolutely love this. They can actually grade themselves. It's like a self-assessment. They could do it, you could do it, and you can compare. I think that's a wonderful thing to do. It tells you how to use a rubric, but coming from a teacher, I was a teacher for 13 years before I started homeschooling. Do show your child this rubric before they even start so they know what is expected of them and that it's very clear. So I love that they have that in there. And there's also a review here. So it says, throughout this unit, you've gained so much knowledge about the geography of North America. Review what you've learned. So label as many provinces, states, oceans, rivers, lakes, and mountain ranges as you can without looking at a map. So that's wonderful. And then your last page is called Paper Armor. It's history and science. And then you do have an appendix. There wasn't much in the teacher's guide appendix. I think there was like 2 maps, but it was what was included in the student notebook, so I did not print it out again. So in the appendix, you do have spelling cheat sheets, and so I just keep this with me so that I have a list of his words and I know what he needs to be working on. If you have a high schooler that you don't want him to do spelling, you can always skip that. That's up to you. Then you have vocabulary cheat sheets, and then you have a ton of maps. You could laminate these, hang these up so that you are looking at these throughout the unit, or you could just pull them out when you need it. As you'll notice, a lot of them have what lesson, like lesson 9, page 4. They tell you exactly what they're for. This is for lesson 11, lesson 12, lesson 13. Here's lesson 15. Then this is a fable you're going to need for lesson 4, page 2. Lesson 5, lesson 6, lesson 7. So you can see there's a lot of extra pages. This is for a food chain diagram. Here's another fable. Write about it. Lesson 8. Lesson 10 has some writing paper. You're going to make a Venn diagram for lesson 12. This is designing 2 different paper airplanes. Use what you learned about lift, drag, and weight. That's for that page. Or that lesson. A lot of extra sheets. Experiment results. This was one of the biggest, like when I think about the appendix in there, this one had a lot of extra stuff in it. This is lesson 18 and lesson 19. And as you can see, it keeps going on and on. A whole lot of extras. So that's in there. And then like I was talking about, the answer keys there. So if you don't want to leave that in there, and like my son would probably never notice that this was in the back, but if you have kids who look through their whole work, they would notice this. So I just printed up the answer key, and I'm just going to stick it, you know, with my stuff so that I can check his work. So that is North American forest animals. I'll just put that little page there if you want to see it. Again, if you want to know more about Gather Round Homeschool, please check out my channel. I have so many playlists that talk about how we use Gather Round, what units we've done. If you want to see inside one of the units, I've pretty much done tons of them. A lot of the newer ones I have not done flip throughs because we just haven't got to them yet. But you're going to find reviews, flip throughs, how we do it, a day in the life, all those things. If you have any questions about this unit or how to use Gather Round Homeschool or anything, leave them in the comments below. And as always, thank you so much for watching.